we were lucky enough to meet Dan Weber, one of the core rule set developers of Malifaux. So he was going to tell us some new things that might be coming out. Probably not. But all the stuff that made him realize what was wrong about the old books.
I played Cards Against Humanity with him.
Wow, you must feel dirty.
Very dirty.
For Malifaux, yeah, I'm one of the lead designers for Malifaux. The recent book, the book 4, which has the 10 Thunders, I'm the lead designer on. And essentially, yeah, I've worked on each book we've had since the first one. I've worked on the rules manuals, the setting, fluff, a little bit of everything. So if it's Malifaux, it's got me in it somewhere.
So what's going on when you guys are designing the book? What are the first things in your mind? Like, what's the priority for the book?
Well, since Malifaux's a character-driven skirmish game, we really want characters to come through. So oftentimes we'll start with a discussion of what kind of characters we would like in the book. Do we have a story part of the story we would like to tell better? We want to get more involved with. Are there certain characters we feel have moved to a position in the story that we want to advance them, like we did with some characters becoming avatars, or in the most recent book, Misaki moving to a master. So we do that. Then we discuss, obviously, where they would fit as far as mechanics and work from there. Sometimes we brainstorm ideas and they work out. Sometimes they don't. I've got quite a few models that probably will never see the light of day simply because they didn't quite fit into the mechanics that we wanted them to have, or they just don't quite fit the setting the way we'd like them to now. Doesn't mean pieces of them haven't shown up since we've started designing them, but you probably won't see a lot of those guys come out. Not everything makes it, but essentially that's our design. We go through and decide what the best plan is to keep it character driven, to keep it interesting for you, to keep it exciting, and not make it too crazy.
And today we're demoing Evil Baby Orphanage, and that's a new game from you. It was on Kickstarter for a while.
That's our Kickstarter, yep. That was designed by our Northern California office where the design studio kind of resides now. And essentially it's a party-style card game, so it's non-collectible. And you are basically time nannies who have come and said, you know what, I would like to make sure that these evil personages through history, whether it's Hitler or Caligula or Rutherford B. Hayes, do not descend into violence and become evil. So what we're going to go ahead and do is kidnap them as infants and raise them and teach them right from wrong, basically to raise them to be good. So kind of a funny thing where you're keeping an eye on the babies because they do still misbehave, they are mischievous, and some are biters, some are bullies, some are grabbers, and essentially it's a quick card game where you play with your friends, it's a lot of fun, and you're trying to collect the most babies and keep the most babies in line, essentially.
I was curious about how weird being a company is of how it went to Kickstarter. I thought it just went in-house. Well, do you guys know the motivation for that?
Well, Kickstarter is an interesting thing, and I'm kind of fascinated by Kickstarter in general. But what we ultimately wind up with Kickstarter is not every company has a lot of funding right away to jump onto something. So Kickstarter was a chance for us to do what we wanted to, not feel like we were stretching the resources. If we want to put more value into it, then maybe we can right now. The Kickstarter is a perfect way to go. So if we have enough money, or maybe not enough, but we want to do better, that's a good advantage for a company to do. So even a card game, it's not cheap to produce, it's not cheap to do art for, so Kickstarter helps us make sure that we get the best quality, the best product, and don't have to delay or put something off we want to do.
So what are you guys thinking of doing, where we're going, like, game-wise? Like, are you going to be, like, with Baby Orphanage, are you guys going to be doing, like, maybe a certain kind of card game for the Malifaux, or just going off and branching something new?
We're going a lot of different directions. There's a lot of ideas out there. Now that we have people that are kind of in-house a little bit, we have a lot more ideas that we're able to look at more in depth, let's say. There are some things on the tap that, some things I can say. Obviously people know about the RPGs being discussed, so that's coming up, and that's going to hopefully have a nice tie-in with the miniatures game. I won't have to give too much away on that. We're still, talking about that. There's some other things too you can't really talk about, but there's some more stuff, not huge things, not small things, there's stuff coming. I won't talk too much about it though.
So right now, everyone's just thinking, okay, so there's more stuff coming. Now they're just going to be chomping at the bit for a weirdo. What else is coming? So that's good. At least we got people interested in that.
Got to keep you excited.
Oh yeah. So when you're, what is your favorite faction to play? Like when you play personally?
When I play personally, my favorite faction is usually, I actually have fun with the guild. I enjoy playing with the Cowboys. I enjoy the Santiago. I enjoy the Ortegas. I just like playing with my guild guys. I have a good time throwing them on the table. My favorite master, my favorite group are the Gremlins. So if it's Gremlin, it was me. So I have a soft spot for them, but I just have the best time with them. It's fun. I love throwing them down. I love the fact they're not consistent, but that's what I like about them, and I like the way they play. And even then, they are a good list. So.
So when you guys were developing everything, was there any rules that they were dead set on that you really wanted and that they finally pushed through? Was there anything just interesting?
Everything's kind of worked out. I mean, there are a lot of things we've gone through and changed and not changed, and there's the infamous video that's still floating around from an early Gen Con that has us talking about the core mechanic in a way that never wound up in the game, and people are still confused because they've seen that video, even though it's been taken down. It's the internet, so it never goes away. But there's stuff on there that people will say, well, how come that's not in the game? Well, we tested it out before it went to print. The strategies and schemes are something that kind of pushed through. That was one of my big things. So the mechanic for our scenario generator, I'm really proud of. I think that works well. I think it gives you enough variety that you have a good time with it, but it still keeps something fresh every time we play. It's not always just set up our models and fight. There's usually a point to it, and the strategy and building your hidden scheme, I think a lot of players enjoy simply because it gives them a hidden strategy that you can work towards while convincing your opponent you're doing something different. So it adds a little layer of trickery to the game that way.
Personally, that's my favorite part, and that's why I've been so adamant about playing Malifaux and just learning the game in the community.
Oh, good.
Because just smash each other's faces and it gets a little boring after a while.
Yeah. Not that there's anything wrong with that either. That's why we've got certain strategies that are very straightforward. Don't get me wrong. But yeah, no, it is nice to be able to sit down and play a scenario and quickly and not have to build a scenario over an hour and a half or something like that. So,
for not so much as weird as the company for all the other games we do, but for Malifaux, like how much more you guys be pushing? Is it how many more books? Any idea about, or how many more factions? We stay pretty stagnant right now.
We're good for right now. We don't want to talk about it too much. There's always still discussion. I mean, there's things you could maybe see becoming factions, or models that people think are always going to be coming up because they're mentioned in the fluff. And again, we don't want to lock ourselves in before we finish deciding things. We're obviously working on stuff all the time, but we don't want to commit to something then decide later, well, that's not fitting where we want it to, and then take it back. And we've told you, and then we have fans that are really excited for something that we don't feel is going to be the best thing for Weird and for the best and for the players. So better to kind of keep it under wraps so we get closer. We kind of, I think people are used to us kind of doing it that way, and they want more info, but don't really do it like that.
And see.
Yeah. I mean, hints pop up more often than you think, so just kind of keep your ears and your eyes open. You'll get some hints.
I'm curious because everyone pretty much generally hates Hamlin. Can you say it's justified, or do you want to try to say Hamlin's not as bad as everyone says it is? I want some defense on Hamlin. I don't think he's horrible. I just think
Hamlin needs a little help. Well, there's a couple things with Hamlin. We all know that the Hamlin is not everybody's favorite, and there's a good reason for it. And it's not Hamlin, it's the Hamlin suite. So there's things that Hamlin, he's not that bad, but you do this with him and you do this with him. And I know players have been begging and clamoring for us to work on it. And, we have a lot of things we have on the plate, and we want to get things done, so we want to make sure we do the right thing. But I can say we are looking at and are working on fixing Hamlin. So people who are asking how long it's going to be, very soon. So I would expect it, I can't say exactly how soon, but we're working on it. Not like we're working on it, we're putting it off. We are working on it actively right now, and you will be very happy, we think, with the result. So
that's going to be. I'm curious, with the amazing fluff that Malifaux has, are you guys ever thinking about maybe branching off into like novels, comic book, graphic novels, just sort of like pushing just their stories? Because the fan fiction itself is amazing on the forums, and people are falling in love with these characters. They stand out.
Yeah. Well, we always talk about that. That's always something I believe we'd like to do eventually. Again, resources. So maybe coming to a Kickstarter near you might be a Malifaux novel. Not that that's a rumor. I'm just, again, it's a resources thing. We have to find the writers. We have to find the time. We have to find the resources to make that happen. So, they're not off the table. They're definitely things that we've all talked about. I would love to sit down and read a graphic novel with Hamlin, with the Gremlins or any of the characters, honestly. So it's one of those things that we talk about and hopefully will come to pass. I can't say when because, it's one of those deals. But, it's definitely something we've been looking around for. I mean, we were at Comic-Con. Nathan came down to Comic-Con, so he might have been looking around for people. You never know.
Okay, when you first started working on, when you started working on Weird and Malifaux, were you expecting such an adamant, I don't want to say obsessive, but just dedicated fan and community base that they've dealt up?
It's great to see. It's wonderful to talk to the fans and get to know the fans, and I'm, fortunate that I work in Southern California. I live down here where the SoCal Malifaux people are. I got to put a shout out for my people. They're a great group, so whenever I get together with everybody, you get to talk to the fans. It's a wonderful feeling. I don't know that I had ever really considered how much of an interest people would have in this game. I thought it was a great mechanic. I thought it was a great game, and we had a wonderful setting, even though the mandate had been all the models Weird had released to date, which is a very wide range of models, had to make it into the game. So you had to find a setting that fit all those funky looks and those disparate, views, and we made it work. And it works. You can't really say exactly how it works, but it really clicks on all cylinders, and it's wonderful to see people pick it up and just get right into it. Love seeing it, love hearing about it. I guess I could say I was slightly surprised, but I'm very pleased by it. So I definitely appreciate the love, definitely appreciate people liking it. So it's a wonderful thing to see. And we all love what we do. So the fact that people like it and we get to do it and we get to do more for you, it's a great feeling.
So I've never heard of that where you had to have use all the weird models. When you were making the initial rule set, what model had the most difficulty of where do we put this model? Which one was probably the hardest?
Well, I came in actually a little bit, not right at the beginning, but early on in the series development. There was a lot of development going on that had kind of gone by the wayside, and I moved in and was helping kind of cement some of that. Some of the setting had built slightly, so the introduction to the setting, and it was more, okay, how do I take this character and make them westerny or steampunkery or fit them in? And everything has kind of grown organically since then. Leviticus was one that was a little funky because it's this guy with a metallic leg, so he's essentially a cyborg, but that doesn't work in a setting where you have cowboys. And then you have Lady Justice, who has Judge Dredd knee pads, and how do you fit her in, and so on and so on. So it's a question of looking at everything. I think what happened was just looking at the models and starting to talk about ideas. The setting exploded that way. It just kind of grew organically from the discussions, and they all just kind of trickled into their places. They found their niches as we went through it. It wasn't so much we said, this model has to do such. This model becomes this character and works well in this setting and is a good fit for this. And then, since then we've obviously developed things much closer towards the setting than we did at the very beginning, but they all fit.
On a personal level, if you could have a kind of model just brought into the game that you just sort of pitch from your own, what would it be?
Well, I get to do that every day, so that's tough to say. I have always had, and this is a funny thing, Misaki I've always had a soft spot for. So initially, the 10 Thunders were something that just kind of grew out of when we were looking at her and writing her up and coming up with a backstory for her. So that would be an example. What's this Asian character doing? This Bushido type looking character in there, and she kind of developed into the 10 Thunders and walking into Malifaux as a precursor for the 10 Thunders showing up. So way back when, that was already planned and discussed. And so I like the fact that now I'm able to build more models to support that. So anything that comes up for the 10 Thunders, I'm actually really excited about, because there's something that was talked about so long ago, and now they're coming to pass for us. And so I think that's great. And anytime I get to work on a gremlin, any gremlin ideas I have just usually are wrong and have to be dialed back on some level. But yeah, anytime I get to work on a new gremlin, it's always fun for me too. So.
All right, well, I think that's everything I can ask you, Dan. For all the viewers out there, if you love the new Misaki box, thank Dan. And for those who play against gremlins and you hate them, blame Dan. But everyone loves the gremlins. Little green things that shit themselves. So thank you very much, Dan.